They're not rebellious. I lived in Canada
You did.
for a couple of years, yeah. And that's the one thing I found is they're very compliant, very obedient, which is ironic because in hockey they're fighting. So I think there's a lot of repression and anger. Like what other sport do they literally fist fight?
I mean, I'm from Minnesota. I thought that I understood Canadian culture, but I think I mostly understood it through hockey.
You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Lohman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Lohman.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the House of Sunny podcast. After this show, I will be checking into a mental institution, having a nervous breakdown.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you.
Thanks.
I'll visit. Can I visit?
I hope they don't drug me.
They're not going to allow
bad.
visitors.
No visitors. It's COVID.
You need to be
kidding?
drugged.
Dude, I'm in California. Maybe I need to go find some weed because, I mean, my life, I was already overwhelmed. And then, wait for it, I got a puppy.
You did not.
I did. I got a puppy. And now
that's the worst idea I've ever heard.
Literally.
That's like having a baby. That's like when you're about to divorce your wife and you decide to have a baby. Like, why would you add that into the mix?
Oh, I see. You go find your hot new young girlfriend and then you have a baby. Is that what you mean?
No.
That seems to happen a lot.
Like you have all this stress and stuff, and then it's like, let's throw something else into the mix.
Yeah, you're having a hard time in your relationship, so you have a baby. People used to joke about that, but I actually think that works because
from the woman, from the perspective of the person who wants to stay in the relationship.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think because I noticed in my own situation that having children really turns you into a family. And when it's family, it's like forever. It's like you just have to work it out. You're kind of forced to work out your issues. There's no more of this like, well, I could always divorce or, now you got a kid, you got serious responsibilities.
Yeah.
And so it does kind of work to, at least it might motivate you to work on your relationship, It
goes from like a high school situation.
Yeah.
To a real situation.
Isn't it funny that even a marriage feels like a high school situation until you have kids? Like
yeah,
it's all just kind of, it could end.
Because nowadays sex is already happening. So it was like in the old days, to get the girl, you had to marry her, or dad and the brothers weren't going to allow you in the house. So now that's all off the table. So like, what is it? What is marriage?
What's different about marriage? Oh, it's about having kids and becoming a family.
Yeah.
And
That's
the
right.
baby is the thing that makes that happen. It kind of grows you up too a little bit. And anyway, I think it just makes people have to try harder. I made the mistake that, everybody makes these days. Whereas I moved in with someone when I was like 21, 20, and I was in love, but then I stayed with this person for years. And I kind of got stuck a little bit with logistical issues. Like I ended up owning a house with this person and a dog, but I never had a child. So I always had one foot out the door. And I think like I wasn't as demanding as I would have been. I would have said,
names?
No, we're not naming names. I know you know this person.
Let me share screen. I'm going to pull up their profile.
No, don't. That's not okay. But I would have been more demanding. I would have been like, look, I'm your wife. You've got to you've got to like engage here. You can't just be like, well, I am who I am,
right.
Which is something I heard repeatedly.
I am what I am.
That is a funny excuse. I don't know if women make that excuse, but men make that excuse a lot. Like, I am who I am. So yeah, don't try and change me. And it's like, maybe women do more of the trying to change thing, but what women are just asking for is effort, like effort in the relationship.
I think women think they're always changing. That's part of
I'm
why
growing, I'm changing, I'm making all this effort. You need to.
yeah, that's part of being a woman is thinking that they're changing when they're really just being a nag.
Oh,
And
that is rough. That is
and
rough.
a guy, you're just like, look, you knew what you were getting into
Yeah.
when you
Except that's bullshit because
Oh.
dudes, they do the courting. So that is, you're either lying when you're courting or you're being yourself.
You're lying.
You're lying. So don't
Everybody's
tell me
lying during
like,
courting.
and that woman just kind of hangs on to that year that was so great and goes,
Yeah.
what happened to you? What happened to like you used to bring me olives from the specialty store.
I'll tell you what happened. We had sex 47 times and now I'm tired of it. That's what happened. And now I'm 20 something and I'm looking at like 1,000 other women that I rather have. That's what men.
Yeah.
That's the male thing.
Okay. I'm glad to know that. That wasn't part of what we were going to talk about today. But today we're going to talk about, I'm just going to list it so that our listeners know. We're going to talk about Joe Rogan's apology. Oh, and Neil Young and all that stuff, the Spotify controversy. And within that, woven into that fabric is a royal report.
Nice.
And we're going to talk about truckers in Canada, Canadian truckers, and Justin Trudeau.
The best.
Okay.
He's
so
like a cartoon character.
He really is. I don't know how he got reelected. That just, have we done an audit of the Canadian election? Because that just doesn't seem possible. That doesn't seem possible. He's such a joke,
Yeah. Canadians are dumber than Americans. Or
is that
they're
right?
more corrupt.
I heard
they were smarter.
I thought they're about the same, but I've heard that they are more obedient. They're more like British in there. Oh, I don't want to rock the boat. And Americans are all like,
they're not rebellious. I lived in Canada.
You did?
For a couple of years, yeah. And that's the one thing I found is they're very compliant, very obedient, which is ironic because, in hockey, they're fighting. So I think there's a lot of repression and anger. Like what other sport do they literally fist fight?
Yeah.
Like they do in
I guess that's
hockey?
I'm from Minnesota. Well, and you've spent time in Minnesota too, but I'm from Minnesota. I thought that I understood Canadian culture, but I think I mostly understood it through hockey.
Well, that is Canadian
so I'm like,
culture.
hey, these guys are tough. They're just like us, they're just like Minnesotans.
No, if you watch the crowd, they're all like this.
Oh, it's all with their pinkies raised.
Yeah. And
yeah.
And if you're sort of boisterous or obnoxious in a restaurant or something with your buddies or whatever, that's like, these garish Americans, it's like that. They think of themselves as, I think, at least the city Canadians think of themselves as like very European. But I guess all city people think of themselves that way. So it's probably not different.
It's funny that we fought a war to get the hell away from Europe. And then we got this like vibe where people thought Europe was so great. And how can we be more like Europe? I grew up sensing that. I grew up in the city and definitely there was that sense that Europe was this place of culture and this place of intellectual ability. And they were so much better than us in culture and in morality and in intellectual
art. Yeah.
Even thinking, and Americans are dumb and loud and, stupid and ugly, materialistic. American. And okay. So speaking of ugly Americans, how's that for a segue? I'm going to share my screen and show you, we're going to talk about this fat movement. Hang on.
I've got a screen it was kind of
a big deal because a magazine article cover came out, like it was Self or something like that. Here's I don't know if
wow.
I don't think I triggered that my sound should get recorded. Okay. Yeah. So this is just one of the article headlines. Cosmopolitan, this is healthy. 11 women on why wellness doesn't have to be one size fits all. And it's all these, fat chicks. And then I think Self also had a cover at the same time. And this is in the middle of a pandemic where being obese is actually a disadvantage. Like it actually could kill you.
Yeah.
You have one of the highest risk factors if you're obese in the middle of this COVID pandemic, and they're going to muzzle my child and then put this shit on their covers about how healthy it is to be obese. F you guys. This is not about health. Like, there are all these signs that all of these things are not about health. And this is one of them.
This, and by the way, like this is science. These are the science people. Like all science tells you obesity is bad. That's like the one fundamental
it leads
cardinal
to
rule.
So many diseases and problems and just like bad knees and, like anyone, I'm not trying to be down on overweight people. I know how hard life can be. And I know there are various addictions. I used to be addicted to smoking. I've been on prednisone where I've gained a bunch of weight. I'm overweight right now, to me. And from the pred, I know that hormonally sometimes you can't help because I've been on drugs where I've been drugged into like starvation where I want to eat everything. And so there's a lot of difficulty sometimes for people. They might have a genetic issue where their hormones are out of whack or who knows. So I think the more you eat too, the more your hormones get out of whack, the more insulin resistant you get, and the harder it gets. You get into a vicious circle. So it's hard. And I'm not trying to.
That's your point, is that that's not healthy.
Yes. I just don't think, like, what is the purpose of these beauty magazines? It's supposed to be, first of all, beauty. Beauty is health. Even people who don't, take Jordan Peterson. He's not the most attractive dude in the world. When he lost weight and got tan and got a better outfit and his hair looked better, like he was looking kind of handsome for a puny sort of intellectual nerd. He was looking very good. Like he was looking more of like the handsome older guy because he got healthier. He started eating better. He got tanned, right? Health is beauty. You don't have to be born with perfect features and like natural beauty. If you're healthy, you if your skin glows, if you have a tan, if you're fit, it goes so far. It goes so far as opposed to pasty, pudgy, unkempt. Like you're not going to be. That is not beauty, and being overweight is not attractive. It just isn't. I don't feel attractive when I'm overweight, and I'm not trying to like get down on somebody who's not, but it's just the way it is. It should not be on the cover of a beauty magazine. It's like a spitting in the face of civilization to put this on the cover and be like, this is healthy. This is beauty. You will like this. And so Self did it too.
It's spitting in the face of objectivity and standards, because this is a total denial. Once again, it's a total denial of objectivity, of standards, and of like in this case, not just subjective standards, which you could argue about, but literal like biological reality, which is that obesity and health is like a thing. It's like a real quantifiable, true thing where certain healthy behaviors correlate to a better life and better health outcomes. So the idea that this is all okay, that there's no difference between, someone who's obese and someone who's fit, it doesn't mean everything. I mean, certainly it doesn't mean you're a better person necessarily or anything like that, but healthy, like qua healthy, there's literally a standard. And so to say this is just like completely trying to break down any objective standard. And now we've broken down, people, like there's no gender. There's no sex. There's no, men can have babies and menstruate. I mean, this is postmodernism gone awry.
Yeah, it really is.
Once
And
again.
there's no area of our lives that is untouched by this anti-reality stuff. And here's another image for you. Here's the beautiful Lena Dunham.
Oh God.
So she wrote this article, or I don't know, she was interviewed and she was saying how much better she feels fat, you know? And I just want to point out too, with these people here, they're all young. You know, if none of these people lose weight, they are going to kill themselves with this, or at least shave off a lot of life, also be uncomfortable and miserable and on a lot of medications and in wheelchairs and things like that as they get older. I mean,
heart disease, stroke, diabetes.
Yeah. Take a 20-year-old and be like, yeah, I'm obese, but like all my blood work is fine. It's just so, yeah, okay. That is not the point, is it? And here's Lena Dunham, the beautiful, the most, just this disgusting pig, Lena Dunham. And I say that
it's like, it's
not even about her physically, mentally. She's gross. I can't stand this woman. She's so gross.
That sloppy guy.
And then, you know, you have two alternatives. You can either support this ugly movement where you're, you know, putting piercings through your nose like a bull. That's the new thing, is to have, like, when I was in college, it was the tongue piercing, which I thought was so stupid. And then all those people discovered that they were like wearing away the enamel on the inside of their teeth with that thing. And they had like all this. Remember the tongue ring?
Sure.
That was this big thing in the 90s. And now it's the bull nose ring right there. And dyeing the hair funny colors and shaving, and like, let's be as ugly as we can be. Or let's be as slutty as we can be. I don't know if you can see this, but this is Madonna's daughter, you know, basically posing, you know, auditioning for her OnlyFans account. Maybe there's her butt. And look at the face. Like, I'm sorry, sweetie. Like, Madonna doesn't look so sad and angry and upset when she's posing in her fishnets. Maybe you shouldn't be doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So once again, it's like, we're going to look at her face. It's like Miley Cyrus and that whole movement of, we're going to turn the whole wholesome young woman idea on its head, and we're going to be sluts, because that's a pushback against the mores of, you know, these oppressive religious mores or something like that. Yeah.
It's really sad. Looking in her eyes.
Talk about a false alternative, you know?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So moving on to Joe Rogan. So I'm sure everybody knows that last week, Neil Young said that he would pull his music from Spotify if they didn't censor Joe Rogan. So they pulled Neil Young's music from Spotify. Neil Young versus Joe Rogan podcast. 80-year-old man versus Joe Rogan podcast that has an average listener of like 25 years old and millions of listeners regularly. And Joe Rogan podcast won. However, he did apologize. Like, then these other singers started doing it, like Joni Mitchell and these other people. And if you want to go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, they're saying that BlackRock owns Neil Young's music, and, you know, there's some weird stuff there.
Yeah, he sold his catalog to a conglomerate that buys royalties, that I believe is owned by BlackRock to some extent, and possibly with a connection to Pfizer.
Right. Right. So maybe I guess it's not that far of a leap to say they must have some influence over Neil Young. But I don't know if they can just call him up and say, make this public statement and pull your music or whatever. I don't know if Neil Young has the right to pull his music from Spotify if he's got these business partners.
Right.
But
he didn't deny it. I mean, right. So Neil Young certainly could have come out and said, oh no, this is this corporation that bought my stuff. You know, now it's like Joni Mitchell and some other people, you know, they're coming out and demanding censorship.
Yeah, so he got a lot of heat, and then he came out and did an apology, which I'll share. Do we want to play the whole thing? I don't know.
No, I didn't really like it.
Most people have probably heard it.
So this is Rogan saying, "Oh, I like Neil Young, and I feel bad about this, and I just try and have honest conversations with people."
Hello, friends. I wanted to make
He's
a
so
video to
likable.
address some of the controversy that's been going on over the past few days. And
Now let's remember, Joe Rogan is a Bernie bro. He politically, philosophically, he is a socialist. He's a nice guy too. I mean, on top of that, like, so even though he's willing to talk to anybody, I mean, that's really been his strength, is he's an honest and real person. What you see is what you get. He's not faking or lying, and he's willing to talk to anyone, and he's a curious person, and he's a great interviewer. So that's why he's successful. But he is not like a capitalist. I think he's kind of in this idea that, I don't know why a lot of socialists think that under socialism, they're still going to have some capitalism.
Is he
Like,
really a
kinda have this, like-
socialist, or
Well,
is he
he's
just
a
sort of
Bernie
leftist?
bro.
Okay.
He's a guy who likes Bernie Sanders as politically, and Bernie Sanders is an overt socialist. So I don't know how he could be otherwise.
Mhm.
How do you? But he's still kind of pro-capitalist. So I think he has this idea that American socialism will be different. It'll be this mix of capitalism and socialism. I don't think he's made that connection. Whatever. But so let's just be clear that he isn't one of us. He's not a right sider. He's not going to come out and be like, F you, Neil Young. That's just not, he's
Right.
not firmly intellectually on the right.
Yeah,
on
he's
the
not like
left.
a conservative or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's not going to come out and be, I actually feel okay with what he said. There's only one thing that I didn't really like, but he basically apologizes.
And first of all, to say thank you to everyone that sent love and support. I truly
thanks to
appreciate
you people,
it.
thanks to my
and
haters.
It's been very nice to hear from you. I wanted to make this video, first of all, because I think there's a lot of people that have a distorted perception of what I do, maybe based on sound bites or based on headlines of articles that are disparaging. The podcast has been accused of spreading dangerous misinformation, specifically about 2 episodes, a little bit about some other.
He's going to accept the premise that misinformation is even possible, like that is a thing, and that should be censored if it were. He's going to accept that premise and then say, I didn't, I'm not doing that.
Ones, but specifically
Okay.
about 2. One with Dr. Peter McCullough and one with Dr. Robert Malone.
Both great
Dr. Peter
podcasts.
McCullough is a cardiologist, and he is the most published physician in his field.
So he's now saying, look, these guys are credible. I had credible dudes on, so stop complaining. As if he had a non-credible, more fringe doctor, it wouldn't be credible. And he shouldn't, and he maybe should be censored. Like all this like excuse making and qualification is not what I want to see, which is just a flat out look. This is America. And in America, 2 years ago, it would have been normal to talk to anybody. And now I'm being told that's wrong.
Right.
And I don't think it's wrong. And I'm going to keep doing it. And I think that everybody benefits from all the information. Like that's the statement he could have made and didn't make. Instead, he qualified the hell out of his show. And then he agreed to have a label put on any of his shows about COVID. Spotify is going to put a label on his shows saying this could have misinformation.
Mm-hmm. And what's ironic too is that, he's apologizing for having differing viewpoints and for quote unquote being controversial. And the people that are accusing of him of this, they just spread propaganda 24/7. Like, why is he the one who's getting heat for actually having open conversations and having differing viewpoints and having a diversity of opinion? And the people on the other side are unanimous
They've been wrong about
tyrannical.
everything. They've
And they've
been
been-
wrong about everything. And I mean, if I were him, maybe I'd say, look, I'll take the label if everyone talking about COVID takes the label. So any conversation about COVID should be suspect and people should think for themselves. And that includes CNN, that includes,
Right.
like I will take the label if everyone takes the label.
Well,
but
that's
I'm
what
not
Adam
going to take.
Carolla said. He goes,
Is that right?
What have you all gotten right in the last
Yeah.
2 years? Name one thing. And then he went through the list of everything they've gotten wrong.
History. Dr. Robert Malone owns 9 patents on people, and they have information in them. The problem I have with the term misinformation, especially today, is that many of the things that we thought of as misinformation just a short while ago are now accepted as fact. Like, for instance, 8 months ago, if you said, if you get vaccinated, you can still catch COVID and you can still spread COVID, you would be removed from social media. They would ban you from certain platforms. Now, that's accepted as fact. If you said, I don't think cloth masks work, you would be banned from social media. Now, that's openly and repeatedly stated on CNN. If you said, I think it's possible that COVID-19 came from a lab, you'd be banned from many social media platforms. Now, that's on the cover of Newsweek. All of those theories that at one point in time were banned were openly discussed by those 2 men that I had on my podcast that have been accused of dangerous misinformation. I do not know if they're right. I don't know because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a person who sits down and talks to people and has conversations with them. Do I get things wrong? Absolutely. I get things wrong.
Like, so what? I'm just kind of confused about this whole, like a lot of what he says is fine. Accepting the label is my biggest problem with this. I don't expect Joe Rogan to come out and make a really principled statement. I just don't. So I'm not that upset about it. I think it's fine. He's a nice guy. He comes across as nice. He comes across as wanting to bridge the gap. And maybe there's a place for people like this. We have
I was just going to say that this is why he's likable by many
Yeah.
people across the spectrum.
Yeah.
If he came out with like this type of stand that I would take, which is fuck you, I'll do whatever I want.
Right.
He's going to be
Which some
immediately
people
labeled
do.
as,
So that's like, that's fine. There are people who are doing that. There are people who are more in the middle. I remember when this whole pandemic started and there were people who were saying, this is a hoax. It's a pandemic. It's fake. Masks don't work, like all this stuff. And I didn't really agree with them at the time. I thought it was crazy to say that that COVID doesn't exist when it obviously exists. And I felt that it kind of lessened their credibility and power to oppose things like lockdowns and mask mandates and things like that. And I wanted people to stop saying that. But I remember telling people who were saying to me that these people who are out there protesting masks and things like that and saying COVID is fake, that they're the only thing standing between us and total tyranny, because you need people on the edge pushing that. You need the spectrum, and those of us who are kind of more in the middle or maybe on the edge, but not out there saying it's fake and protesting, we're not really moving the needle, or we are in our own way, but it kind of takes a spectrum of people from all different extreme viewpoints to change things. And not everybody's just going to agree all the time. So I listened to Joe Rogan thing and I was at first upset. And then I was like, it's fine. No one's going to be upset about that. And he may have even brought some people in with that. Oh, yeah, like he seems like a reasonable guy. He's like saying he's not trying to do this. He's just trying to have conversations. And frankly, if he does bring more people in to listen to his podcast, those people are going to get red pilled because everything he's doing is red pilling people.
And that's why he has over 10 million viewers, because he's not, he is very reasonable. He is very everyday guy, just having a conversation without a lot of ideology, so to speak. And so to the extent that he just lets and we've always said this, let the truth out, have conversations, and the truth will win out. Like 11 million people, his viewership is more than Fox, CNN, and MSNBC combined. So anyone listening to his stuff is going to get interesting information, and that's what we're all begging for.
Yeah.
So I think his response is sort of, I agree. I thought it was a little tepid and a little milk toasty, but that is kind of who he is.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have
that
a
is who
huge
he
problem
is.
with it. I wish he would have been a little firmer on the F you, don't tell me what to do thing, but that's just not him.
I wish he would have been firmer on the free speech, kind of like stating that as this is an American value, everybody. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I would like to
How
hear
dare
that from
you.
him. But again, I'm not sure that's him. And it's fine. I thought it was fine. Accept the label. I don't like that he's just willing to accept a label put on him like he's some kind of, the yellow star thing. Like, oh, he's a subversive. He gets the label. If I were him, I'd be like, I'm not, so I'm not accepting that label. And I think accepting the label is too much. I think that's going to destroy him. Because next they can be like, well, they can Alex Jones him. All right. So then, one of the things that really was really interesting has to do with the Royal Report.
That was a really lame segue.
Thanks. But it has to do with Spotify.
Now it's time for the House of Sunny's Royal Watch.
So
I think I know
I'm
where you're going with
surprised
this.
Joe Rogan didn't just completely fold because
Harry
and Meghan, they don't like that he's.
I wonder what side they're on, Sonny. I think they're going to come out and be vociferous defenders of free speech and, of truth and
Harry's
scientific method.
already against misinformation, and Meghan, as an apparently Black person, is very against information having to do with her. Everything about her is
Are you
racist.
sure about this?
What?
I'm being sarcastic.
Oh.
There you go.
Harry and Meghan expressed Spotify concerns over Rogan Vax controversy. And just let me remind you that these two were paid or their contract is an $18 million contract for a podcast that they have recorded one episode for. In over a year, they've recorded one episode.
Seriously?
And then they had to hire a new production team, and then they still didn't manage to get any episodes produced. And now Spotify announced like a week ago that they were hiring a team to come in and produce the show with Harry and Meghan because they just can't get it done. Okay, so this happened all before Rogan. Oh my God, they're doing nothing. Right? They're sitting around. They got a couple babies. They're probably, Harry's probably drunk all the time because I would be if I were him. And so that is what's been going on between them and Spotify. And then this thing happens, and then they come out and we have concerns about Joe Rogan. They should just not speak about Spotify at all. It's embarrassing because it literally just brings up that they have screwed over Spotify by not finishing their podcasts like they had promised. They probably got some kind of advance. I know they weren't paid the 18 million, but I think they got some kind of advance to set up production and, paying them. They did one episode and then they just haven't done anything. So that's so funny. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
Yeah, go ahead.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have expressed their concerns to Spotify for allowing, quote, COVID misinformation, end quote, to be spread on its platform. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have weighed into the growing controversy surrounding fellow Spotify star. Fellow Spotify star? No, I'm sorry. Joe Rogan is a Spotify star,
right?
Not Harry and Meghan. They haven't made any content. Last week, Neil Young removed his entire catalog. Joni Mitchell followed. The couple has a reported $25 million deal with the audio giant. Oh, sorry, it's $25 million. In a statement Sunday, an Archwell spokesperson said, quote, "Last April, our co-founders began expressing concerns to our partners at Spotify about the all too real consequences of COVID-19 misinformation on its platform. We have continued to express our concerns to Spotify to ensure changes to its platform are made to help address this public health crisis."
Wow. What
Could
are
they
the
be
false
any
claims?
more authoritarian? I don't even care. Who the hell do they think they are?
God.
We have continued to express our concerns to Spotify to ensure changes to its, as if they're in charge,
Yeah.
not to request, but to ensure changes are made to its platform to help address this public health crisis. That is the language of a freaking tyrant.
Yeah. It's like they're like inquisitors. They're not saying, here's why you're wrong. They're just saying, this is untrue according to the Pope or whomever, and we want to ensure changes are made. That's it. There's absolutely no attempt made to actually say, like, what did he get wrong? What's wrong?
Yeah. There's no acknowledgement that they don't just get to issue edicts. We look to Spotify to meet this moment. Who talks like that? Who talks like that?
God.
Meet this moment and are committed to continuing our work together as it does. You're not working with them, honey. You're not working. The statement did not specifically mention Rogan's show, but page 6 revealed the couple was unhappy last April after Rogan claimed that healthy young people don't need to bother getting the COVID vaccine, despite advice from the CDC and medical experts saying otherwise. Embarrassingly, he made his comments on the same day that Harry and Meghan announced they were joining President Biden at Vax Live, a concert in Los Angeles. Like, how does what Joe Rogan say have anything to do with them? Why are they embarrassed? You know?
Right.
Embarrassingly, Joe Rogan said something on the same day that Harry and Meghan were over here saying something else. What the hell does that have to do with them? Why would they be embarrassed?
Someone disagrees
What
with me.
is going on here?
Someone in the universe disagrees with me. I can't go on. I can't
handle
go to the
it.
concert. I can't.
This is embarrassing. You're humiliating me. The Sussexes, who announced an exclusive partnership with the service in December 2020. So how long has it been?
A year.
2020. Just over a year, are among Spotify's most famed personalities. Yeah, which is why they got $25 million that they haven't earned.
It was
saying they, quote, will host and produce podcasts that build community through our shared experience, narratives, and values.
What's our shared experience with the Royals? Do we have shared experiences? Like having a $1 billion wedding, having a parade, living in a castle, having like being royal heads of state. Like, these are our experiences, having butlers and maids take care of everything, getting paid to do nothing. That's not my
living in an $18 million mansion in Santa Barbara area. However, they're so far only released a short holiday special. And last week, it was reported that Spotify had started hiring staff to help ramp up their production process.
By the way, they haven't done jack shit.
By the way, Spotify ramps up hiring to nudge Harry and Meghan's podcast projects because they're losers. Okay. So that's freaking hilarious.
God.
And the last hilarious thing I'm going to share before we end our show today is the Justin Trudeau stuff. Right? God. So I'm sure you guys know that. Oh, there was something else I wanted to show too. Listen to this guy. Before I get into the truckers, listen to this guy. So y'all know what's going on in the UK, where basically they've folded. Like, they've just opened everything up. No more mask mandates, no vaccine mandates.
COVID's
I
over.
heard COVID's over in Britain. It's done. Everybody's been vaccinated or had Omicron. It's just over. And this guy, listen to how this guy admits he's wrong. Hang on. I just want to make sure I shared my sound. I'm horrible at this share thing. Yeah, I shared the sound. You got to hear this, bureaucrats. I don't even know who this guy is. But listen to what he says, and listen to him laugh and act like how charming.
We haven't had more restrictions than Plan B over Christmas and New Year. That was the right decision based on the data we have from South Africa. And
so she's saying to him, you locked us down over Christmas and New Year for Omicron, which turned out to be mild. And now, the models were wrong again. And listen to what he says about it.
Well, what we've actually seen, that was a good decision. We're told at the weekend, though, that you were one of the ministers most pushing for there to be more restrictions as a result of the modelling. Do you accept now that the modelling that has been used to lock us down and restrict our lives, close businesses, get children out of school for the last 2 years has actually all been wrong, and we should not be listening to the modellers again?
No, I don't accept that it's all been wrong, but I was
Which
wrong.
bits were right? Could you point to a model that's been correct, that even their best case scenario has even come close to matching where we were?
Yes, but you're going to get something unprecedented, I think. You're going to get a politician saying that they got something wrong. In Cabinet was concerned that...
Look how good I am. I am going to admit that I was wrong about something. The other day when I left, it was raining and I had said it was going to be sunny out. Could you believe that? And I'm going to admit now that I was wrong. Can I get a pat on the back? I locked you down at Christmas, but I was wrong about the weather.
That we may need additional restrictions and argued for them. I was wrong. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor were right. At Cabinet a couple of weeks ago, I said I was wrong and they were right. You have it here, Julia, a scoop, a revelation.
You have it here, Julia, a scoop. Like he's making fun of it. Dude locked people in their houses at Christmas.
And now he wants credit for being
and
honest.
now he wants to even get a pat on the back for being wrong about that. Oh, I'm such a good politician. I will admit when I'm wrong. And I'm going to give you a scoop. Like everything is about him being awesome. Wait, let me
lock us down and restrict our lives. That even their best case scenario has even come
something wrong. In Cabinet was concerned that we may need additional restrictions and argued for them. I was wrong. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor were right. At Cabinet a couple of weeks ago, I said I was wrong and they were right. You have it here, Julia, a scoop. A revelation of what actually went on in Cabinet. I won't say what anyone else said. I'll tell you what I said, which is, I'm sorry, on this occasion, I made a mistake. Now, lots of people make mistakes when you're dealing with an incredibly complex and fast-moving situation like the COVID pandemic. I think...
Wait, what? We can make mistakes? What?
I
Now
thought
it's
that
okay?
everything
I
else was
thought-
misinformation.
I thought we knew everything about it. It was 100% proven. And anyone who disagrees with that should be in jail or in a concentration camp.
Whoops, I'm so sorry we killed you. I'm going to admit that I was wrong. I was wrong. Ivermectin works. Oh my gosh, I was wrong. I know your grandparents died, but look, you have a scoop. I'm a politician who's admitting it. Forgive you. You have to forgive me. This is how they're going to try to get away with it. This is how they're, oops, oopsies. Hey, I can admit it. So you can see how honest I am.
Sonny, this is a very complicated situation. Everybody makes mistakes in except the people that Joe Rogan has had on who have been consistently right, who are being accused of misinformation. Can
you believe this guy being jovial about this? Like, and it's all about how, if he could not be displaying more of a narcissist kind of trait where, hey, give me a pat on the back just even for saying this to you, journalist. I was wrong. Hey, now you have a scoop, and I'm an honest politician, and I deserve even more credit.
God. Yeah.
People like that need to be,
Quarantined.
put in a camp. No, removed from. They need to be taken away from power for the rest of their lives somehow. I feel like this whole COVID thing is ending, and a lot of people are just going to get away with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're just going to forget about all this.
We are going to forget about it. We're
We should
so
never-
grateful to have our freedom back. Like Boris Johnson just folded and gave everybody their freedom back. And I don't think he's going to get away with it, but a lot of people around him are going to get away with it. The more bureaucraties types that aren't in the major public eye, the people who made these models and sent them out as truth and fact and influenced policy, the Pfizer executives, people are going to get away with
treatments. The suppression of treatments, because if they had admitted there was a treatment, they couldn't have gotten their emergency use authorization for the vaccine. So they suppressed legitimate treatments like ivermectin and hydrochloroquine and all this other stuff. And these people, now we're seeing studies. Oh, by the way, ivermectin works.
Right.
We can never forget what these people have done.
No, we can't.
I mean, this is such an outrage. So many people have been affected by this. Millions and millions of people who have died. People who, I have a friend that was in the hospital recently and suffering under the dumb protocols. Can't give him this, can't give him that, can't give him this. The hospital says, CDC says, and watching a friend potentially die because they can't receive treatments.
I've seen that
due to
too,
these dogmatic
where
idiots.
People have had a serious case, including in my own family, delayed treatment due to this. I mean, it's really evil.
The masks, the denial, and just the denial of free conversation and free scientific debate to get to the truth. The idea that they have a monopoly on the truth and that anyone that disagrees with them needs to be suppressed.
So many
we
people
can never forget this.
Are guilty. So many people are guilty that I think it's going to be they can't arrest all of us moment.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it would have to be like,
who are you going to go after?
If you think about after World War II, when the
Nuremberg trials. Well,
forget the trials. I just mean when the whole thing collapsed and everybody realized what happened and everybody knew, the guy who was just a Nazi, who was just a member of the Nazi party, who did some bad things, who enabled bad things, probably didn't get held to account. No. The leaders did, but just these sort of evil bureaucratic types, they got away with it. They got away with their cowardice. They got away with their evil. And that's what's going to happen here. There's just going to be a huge number of people who are never going to be held to account for the way they've acted during this last 2 years.
Yep.
And that upsets me. But at the same time, I'm just glad it's over. And I look forward to people not feeling comfortable shaming people for not wearing a mask. I look forward to that, even if it means they don't ever have to pay for it.
The bar is very low.
The bar is low
for us because we're so beaten down right now. It's like, oh, we can go out of our cage for an hour a day.
Well, not just that. Practically speaking, how do you make these people? You can't. We're talking about so many people. You can't make people pay.
The futility, the evil, and the tyranny of centralized healthcare policy, like one size fits all, top-down control. Yeah. This is what we can never allow because it will always lead to this.
Right. Okay. Let's listen to Justin Trudeau. So the trucker thing happens, the amazing trucker thing. I don't even know how many trucks now are involved, but it's huge. It is so massive. And Justin Trudeau came out and was like, oh, it's this fringe trucker minority or something. And it turns out, no, it's kind of like everybody. It's not only all the truckers, including the vaccinated truckers, but it's like the whole country is coming out along the route to cheer and provide sandwiches and drinks to all these truckers. I mean, it's like, this is huge.
It was like the Trump parade.
It was like the Trump parade,
the Trump boat
en
parade.
route to the Capitol, you know, and they got to Ottawa. It's like if every Trump parade you ever saw before the election was together in the same road, driving to DC to install President Trump. Like that's how it feels. And they showed up to Ottawa, and all of a sudden, Justin Trudeau gets COVID and has to flee. How weird is that? Like, this is Canada. It's a democracy. And the prime minister left town so he doesn't have to deal with this and pretended to be sick.
You think he pretended to have COVID?
Absolutely. Of course.
But why would he? No, because he's got to be triply vaccinated and boosted.
It doesn't matter. He would be one of 1,000.
He could have just said, I have a cold.
Well, he said he has COVID, and that shields him from having to make a statement or be seen.
Oh, okay.
Because he
kind
can
of
say,
the Joe Biden thing,
no one can see me. I can't be near anybody. Not even camera people, because I have COVID.
The cooties. I have the cooties.
But then check out this. Check this out. This was released after he fled. Hang on. By the way, the memes, man. If you go to my Facebook, Sunny Lohman, I posted a bunch of memes on this. It's so fun.
I have attended protests and rallies in the past when I agreed with the goals, when I supported the people expressing their concerns and their issues. Black Lives Matter is an excellent example of that. But I have also chosen to not go anywhere near protests that have expressed hateful rhetoric, violence towards fellow citizens.
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matters never expressed hateful rhetoric or violence towards citizens.
Not at all.
Not once.
Even while they were burning down the Capitol.
A protest. In other words, I've run from the truckers for good reason.
And a disrespect, not just of science, but of the frontline health workers and, quite frankly, the 90% of truckers who have been doing the right thing to keep Canadians safe.
He, first of all, the truckers who are vaccinated are part of this protest. So, like,
has nothing to do with it.
And he knows this, but he's just like, he can't seem to get out of his talking points. Like, he just can't. He cannot break free of the talking point circle. Listen to, he's like,
the 90% of truckers who.
Hang on. I loved the first part too. I wanted to comment on it.
Not just of science, but of the
disrespectful of science, which is the church, disrespectful of Jesus, and and did I mention the healthcare workers? Because if I just throw out healthcare workers, that sounds like
that's like talking about the first responders during 9/11.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he fired a whole huge proportion of them for not being vaccinated.
Citizens and a disrespect, not just of science, but of the frontline health workers and, quite frankly, the 90% of truckers who have been doing the right thing to keep Canadians safe, to put food on our tables. Canadians know where I stand. This is a moment for responsible leaders to think carefully about where they stand and who.
That's a threat. Listen to that.
Leaders to think carefully about where they stand and who they stand with.
Ooh.
That's a threat, right?
Yeah. Think carefully.
Think carefully about who you stand with.
Yeah. It better not be the Jews.
Speaking of Jews, what do you think of Whoopi Goldberg, the Whoopi Goldberg controversy? And we'll end with that.
Well, it was funny because when you were showing that Parliament guy, that MP from Britain that was saying he was wrong, it flashed under the screen, Whoopi Goldberg suspended for 2 weeks for Holocaust comments. And it just, all the narratives about racism and all the nonsense, the cancel culture, and yet it is always these people that are stepping in this constantly. And of course, will there be any repercussions? Will she be fired? Imagine anyone else saying something like what she said, which is basically that Jews are not a race, that this was not racial, this was just two white groups. and it was just about inhumanity. It wasn't about race. When, someone should tell the Nazis that. But
Whoopi Goldberg has been suspended from The View for 2 weeks after she came under fire for saying the Holocaust was, quote, not about race. So here's her actual quote. It's not about race. It's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about, she said. When co-host Anna Navarro said the genocide was about white supremacy and going after Jews and Gypsies and Roma, Goldberg responded that it was two white groups of people. The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other. It's a problem. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, because black, white, Jews, everybody. I don't even, I don't even know, like in some ways I can kind of understand maybe the point she was trying to make, which is, the Nazis were just kind of evil and they were just like picking a group or whatever. But when she said it's two white groups, like it just does feel.
She's trying to lessen it. She's trying to make it,
Yeah.
She's trying to distinguish it from
black
racism
suffering.
against black racism.
Yeah. And
yeah,
if you're not
that's
black,
a different category. You don't understand.
You have
It's just
nothing
white
to complain
people.
about if you're not black. It's just
like white people
don't say
fighting
it's
each
about
other.
race.
Yeah.
Because the only people with a race are blacks. And
That's the implication.
that is the implication. And that's kind of what they say too. It's like, and a lot of people say about Jews, they have power, so they can't experience discrimination. And with the critical race theory people, they think it's power plus prejudice that is racism. It's not judging somebody by the color of their skin solely and negatively.
Yeah, right. You gotta have power.
And by the way, color of their skin. I mean, in the case of Jews, the Nazis put out posters to help physically identify a Jew. So it's okay. Maybe their skin is white, but there were posters to physically identify Jews versus non-Jews in German culture. So, I mean, it is a race. It's a group of people with a certain genetic makeup.
Yeah, an ethnicity. Yeah, there's an ethnicity as well as religion. That's why these things get it just points to the whole stupidity of the whole thing, which is like, okay, what is race? What is ethnicity? So now we're gonna judge whether like a Holocaust is really as bad as we thought because of the distinction between a religious or ethnic group and a racial, this is where they're at.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely and it's logically where they should be at, because once you go down that road, this is where you lead to. You've got to parse who's are you white? What was your background? What's your DNA say? Are you are you this? Are you that? What group are you in? Because until we know what group you're in, that's the way we define and modulate our outrage, and whether we give you currency to speak, because whether you even have agency to even have an opinion, because without victimhood and being in a particular category, you're not justified or validated.
Yeah. And it even shows in this particular example too, that every white person would get fired for saying something like this. But if you're black, you can get away with overt racism and you're never fired. And she's just been suspended to think about it. But a white person would have been fired.
Oh God, could you imagine?
No question. And especially if they said it about some kind of black, slavery wasn't about black people. It was just about man being inhuman to other men.
Yeah, it wasn't racial at all.
An American slavery wasn't about black people. It wasn't racial. That would be ridiculous. That would be totally ridiculous. I mean, you could say that about some cultures that enslaved people. They didn't care what race you were. If you got captured, your status is just a slave because you're not one of the tribe.
Well, right. Blacks enslaved blacks. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And whites. I would say probably Indian tribes would enslave anyone they captured, potentially. Black or white. They had black slaves. They had white slaves. They had Indian slaves.
Yeah, it really didn't become explicitly racial, I think, until later, when there was a movement to ban it, and when we started to think about individual rights and having rights under the law when people started having to say, well, yeah, but they don't get rights because they're of a different race. So then, but initially, like thousands of years, you know, if you were a peasant in Rome, you were a slave. if you were captured or conquered in sub-Saharan Africa, you became a slave. You know, that was just par for the course. And then these like racial ideas, I think, come in actually much later.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I was reading about, or I was watching something, I think of Victor Davis Hanson thing about ancient whatever. And he was saying, you know, slaves actually had some status. You could rise as a slave and then become free. And slaves were just, they were just commonplace, and it just had to do with wrong place, wrong time. A lot of times you just got picked up and then you were a slave.
Well, yeah, because there's
you could be really educated, and you could be, you know, from a good family, and you could end up a slave just because, you know, so there really wasn't like a privilege. And so people often treated their slaves not as equals, but with respect, because they were often of the same class, but different roles, you know?
Well, we take for granted the concept of individual property rights. Like that's an advanced concept that came much later, that, all individuals have the right to own property. If you're just a person in ancient Rome and you don't own land and you're from a poor family or whatever, you know, you don't wake up one day and say, I have the right to do this or that. No, well, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you your ration of food, but you know, you're going to do this work. And we would call that slavery probably, because you get whipped or beaten if you don't do the work. Of course. So this is not controversial. This is just like the way human beings were. And then we evolved. And the more advanced concept is the idea of rights, which came out of Western civilization. So,
and really recently, I mean,
in the grand,
so that's it for the show today, everybody. Hey, but do you want to see my puppy?
Sure.
Okay. Hang on.
No.
Are you ready for the puppy reveal?
Yeah, let's see it. Whoa, look at him. Oh, what a cutie.
Look at that face. He's such a good boy.
Does he have he smells like a puppy too. I bet he has little puppy sniffs.
He got these long ears. He's black, so you can't really see him.
Does he have his little bitey teeth? That's always funny.
Yeah, he has his little sharp razor blade teeth.
It's filled with satire and fun. It's been the demise of bad ideas, and we'll know what's right when she's done. So download this free podcast now and give perspectives you may lack. It's concise and right and achieves world peace, guaranteed all your money back. Last time, ready?